Please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Remind you to please silence your electronic devices. That would be greatly appreciated. As you know, we had a village election in November. 2 trustees were re-elected. We're swearing in by the Honorable Eric J. Gustafson. First up, Albert Furbishes, and we'd invite the family to join.
Tables over there. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Albert Deshays,
I, Albert Deshays,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
of the State of New York,
of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of village trustee
of village trustee
for the village of
for the
Massena
village of Massena
according to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Easy.
I, Francis Carville, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of village trustee of the village of Massena according to the best of my ability.
I am here. Approval of minutes for October 21, 2016.
So moved. Second.
Mr. Offeld, second by Mr. Deshays. Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Reports of officers and committees. Committee reports. Code Enforcement, Mr. Carville, Mr. LeBeer. Economic Development Committee, Mr. Offeld, Mr. LeBeer. Fire Committee, Mr. Carville, Mr. LeBeer.
We met with the volunteers the other day with nothing to report this time.
We do have an agenda item later on.
Personnel Committee, Mr. Carville, Mr. Deshays.
Met Grandview's last week. It was part of the week of getting new charges.
Police Committee, Mr. Carville, Mr. Deshays.
Talked to the chief. Nothing reported this month. That's the chief has something.
Recreation, Mr. Deshays.
We meet the second Tuesday of the month, which will be next week.
Told the scoreboard's been fixed. The scoreboard problem's been fixed, I'm told.
I heard, yeah.
Street Committee, Mr. Offeld, Mr. LeBeer.
4 o'clock this Thursday, Trustee Carville and myself will be meeting with the town, just at a very high level, to discuss the possibility of a shared municipal facility, Haas, and Frank's going to be there as well. At 4 o'clock, should be like maybe 4 to 5 o'clock, nothing bigger. Yeah.
Water and Sewer Committee, Mr. Offeld, Mr. LeBeer.
Nothing to report.
Ms. Charlotte, did you have anything? I know you're not on the agenda, but
I do not.
you do. Initial public comment period. As always, we ask you to please stand, state your name for the record. Initial public comment period. Seeing none, moving on. Old business, complete streets policy. We're joined by Karen Bage. She's the community coordinator for Creating Healthy Schools and Communities Health Initiative. We appreciate the support that Karen and a whole host of people have given us on this initiative. As you know, this really started last year, and we brought together a number of key people in the community from various departments and sectors of the community to look at a complete streets policy. And that's what you have in front of you. Anyone looking for copies, you can find this on our webpage, or we'd be most willing to make copies and provide them to you. It's 21 pages long, so we did not want to make too many copies in advance, but we're certainly very willing to make copies for anybody that needs them. So, Deputy Mayor, do you have anything? You were highly involved in this.
Yeah, we gave some updates throughout the process, but just to reiterate, there was a few goals as we proceeded making the policy that we thought were right for Massena. It was about making what we could put in place for a policy and guidelines to make Massena an even better place to live, to play, to work for all people. So all modes of transportation, whether it's walking, driving, anything in between, cycling. But what we really did is we took our time and really went through and didn't just choose a boilerplate cookie cutter example from another town. We borrowed some of the best from other areas, but we also made changes and adjustments based on what was necessary for a village like Massena. So what you have here is really the result of a lot of work from a lot of people that gives some great ideas, some great guidelines, some great ways to move forward, making Massena a better place to live, work, and play, but also gives us the flexibility to continue to use our expertise from department heads and other resources, and also doesn't lock us into anything that we can't walk back from should something urgent, come about. So flexibility and appropriateness for the village were two keys that we really kept focused on throughout the whole process. I just wanted to reiterate that.
So to be clear, anyone that's new on this, complete streets are streets that are designed and operated to provide safe and convenient access for all roadway users regardless of age, ability, or mode of transportation. This includes pedestrians, cyclists, transit users, and motorists. Questions from the trustees?
Matt, what does, I'm just looking at some of the acronyms on page 14.
So, I'm sorry.
14,
Sure.
under the funding source, like SRTS or TIP, TIP?
Safe Routes to Schools is SRTS, I believe.
Yes.
Okay. TIP?
TIP, Karen, are you familiar with that one? Not to put you on the spot.
Transportation.
Infrastructure program.
Right.
Okay. And then Parks and LWRP at the bottom, that would be number 14.
Local water redevelopment project.
The mayor passes.
I think he passed the pass. I like the three river loop trail, which that'd be very nice. That's great.
I think one of the more promising things that was kind of reaffirmed during this process was the valuable members that we had in this community. I mean, from the very start, the feedback that, not just a group that we initially invited, but, I speak for the mayor, but I received emails, phone calls from various people who had thoughts on certain aspects of it, wanted to know how they could help, and it just kind of reaffirms what our community is about. And this is just a good way to move forward, in my opinion.
So what is the next?
So what we would look for at a future village board meeting, either the latter one in December or in January, we could establish a public hearing, because we want to adopt this in local law format. So, and given the fact that the next meeting is our annual organizational meeting, we want to put that on the agenda with all the other things going on. So at the next meeting, we'll ask you to establish a public hearing, and then we'll officially adopt it in local law if that is your inclination. So if you have anything in the meantime, if you want to reach out to Matt Beer or I, if you have specific questions, and if we can't answer it, we'll reach out to Karen and kind of get you some feedback as to what we were thinking on a particular portion of this. Karen, we appreciate the support from you and everyone. Thank you very much. Under new business, declare surplus equipment and authorize sale 1989 Ford F800 pumper 1,000-gallon tank. Mr. McGowan.
Yes, sir. We've been having discussions about this truck for months and months and months, and I think we've all come to a consensus. I think it's still a decent truck, but the weather is killing it, and if we had a place to store it where we could utilize it year-round, I would say keep it, but we're at the point now, if we don't sell it, it's going to start costing us more money than it's worth. So at this time, I'm asking if we could declare it Engine 30 declare it surplus and try to sell it, and hopefully we get enough funds to buy a skid unit, which we would place in the RCM8, which is our pickup, which basically that's all we were using Engine 34 was for wildland firefighting. That's what I'm looking for. I know I put in my memo to you, maybe we could do some local bidding and online auctions. Just by chance this weekend, I reached out to Alcoa, because they just purchased a new used truck for them, and they use this company, Fire Tech. Basically, the quick and easy on it, it's a company that buys and sells fire trucks, or they try to sell you a fire truck. Basically, if they sell the fire truck, they get 10%. I looked on their website, they have some similar to ours, going around for 15,000. I was hoping just to get 10,000, and then, because a skid unit is around $8,000. So I think this is a good place to work with, but we could sell the truck on our own too. That doesn't exclude us if maybe another department in the locally wants to come in and buy it. We can still do that, but like I was saying, Alcoa bought a new used truck from Clay. So just this past week, that I said, why didn't you buy ours? But that wasn't, they were looking for something like our custom trucks over there. They have two trucks that aren't anymore, so that's what I'm looking to do, Mayor.
Make a motion to allow for the sale at a minimum of $10,000.
Mr. Ruffalo, second by Mr. Levere. Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Proposed resolution to approve professional service agreement with Bond, Schenek, and King. As you know, we're in contract negotiations with all of our collective bargaining units. The fire agreement appears imminent to head to arbitration with the Massena Permanent Firefighters International Association of Firefighters Local 2220. They will have legal representation in the arbitration process in the interest of protecting taxpayers. We need to do the same. In discussions, we felt it was appropriate to go to somebody with experience in this and not use our local attorney, so somebody with labor relations experience. This was the recommendation of our village attorney and this firm.
So move.
Second.
Mr. Carl, Mr. Levere, Mr. Ruffalo. Discussion. All individually. Mr. Ruffalo.
Aye.
Mr. Carl. Mr. Deshaies.
Aye.
Mr. Levere.
Aye.
Resolution carries. Authorization to engage Safe Art and Safe Art CPAs for financial audit.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Ruffalo, Mr. Deshaies. Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Before we move to the next one, I want to call a quick executive session. Everyone can stay where you're seated. We'll just cross the hall very quickly. Motion to enter into executive session. Mr.
Second.
Carville, Mr. Deshaies, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Right back, folks. What's that? Yeah.
So moved.
Mr. Ruffalo, Mr. Deshaies, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are back. Appointment Nikki Davian, part-time deputy treasurer.
So moved.
Mr. Ruffalo? Second by Mr. Carville. This position was provided for in the budget. In discussions with Joint Recreation Commission, as a full-time clerical and concession person. We will be sharing that person, so that person will work part-time in the village office, and they work part-time for the Joint Recreation Commission. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Proposed resolution, approved tentative agreement with CSEA, and I will call on the contract committee, which is Mr. Offel and Mr. Levere.
I have my sheets in front of me. Do you have it, Matt?
Briefly enough. So Trustee Offeld, myself, Superintendent, met with the union representatives, I don't know, a good 12 or 13 times, a couple hours each time. Great dialogue, great conversations, trying to kind of balance the needs of the taxpayers as a whole, but also protect and recognize our employees rightfully. We came to a tentative agreement that we're looking for village board approval on. Basically what if you look at the guts of it, that's probably what everyone's curious about, is wages and insurance. The union has agreed to have a 4-year staggering increase on insurance. Currently it's $13 a week. Eventually it's going to be up by the end of the 4 years to $30 for a family plan. So a considerable increase there. In terms of wages, what we've settled on is 1% the first year, and Mr. Patterson, you'll help me on this, 2, 2, and 2.5. So it's when you look at it, and this was the easiest way for me to understand what we were actually offering and what they might be receiving. When you look at kind of that average employee down there, and you look at the net gain over 4 years, this is not a huge windfall for any group. And we respect very much, the position both sides are in. This at least keeps them above cost of living where they're not losing ground, but it's certainly not a huge gain by any means for your typical employee there. There's some other, kind of traditional contract language cleanup and some other things that you guys all have, and I'll gladly answer any questions, but I assume that the meat potatoes of it were wages and insurance, so I just wanted to highlight those.
Yeah, just to follow up, Matt, it's a very responsible contract. You don't leave for 13 times, not trying to be responsible, both sides. Great dialogue from each side. And I've been involved in a lot of contracts, and if one side walks away unhappy, nobody's happy. So we got some of the things that we needed, that we found important, and the CSEA got some things that they found to be important. And I think it's a win-win situation for both sides. I'll make, which
I'm
resolution?
kind of motion, so we can, we'll do the first one and attend to the TA, and then we can open it up for discussion, so I'd entertain a motion.
Which one do you go? We got two resolutions there.
Tentative agreement by.
We're looking at E, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Go ahead, Matt, I want to.
So I move that we approve the tentative agreement by and between the Village of Massena and the CSEA Local 1000, AFS-CME, AFL-CIO.
Second.
Second by Mr. Rocco. Discussion.
Just a few questions I have on this. First off, I want to thank Matt and Tim for their time and effort. 13 meetings, a lot of meetings, a lot of time. But I think by looking this over, what I can see in this, it's actually very generous compared to what we're going to be able to have on our end. It looks like the tax cap for this year coming is less than 0.5%. When we're giving out anything over 0.5%, we're falling behind. In the village right now, most of our budget is wages and benefits. When we start increasing at this amount, one thing you have to realize is that General Motors is no longer here. Alcoa is no longer here. We're at the point right now that we're one of the better, if not best paid places to work in the Massena area right now. Maybe exception of maybe one or whatever, but we're very well paid here, very well, a lot of benefits. Looking through here with the increase in benefits and everything, from what I can see, the only thing we don't do now is buy their dinner.
So let me put it in perspective, if I may. If you look at one of the younger guys making $35,000 a year, this contract over 4 years, they net a yearly gain of about $110. Yearly gain. That's about as close to net neutral as I can come. I mean, if I'm a guy down there and I know that gas goes back up in the winter sometimes, costs are going up, my rent's going up, other things are going up, and I'm banking $110, $120 more a year, that's $10 a month. That's not giving away the farm, in my opinion.
What you're saying at the end of this 4 years, I can't see how that comes out to be, but the difference in the wages that you're offering there. because each year those are gonna compound, and the thing that you're gonna take out of there basically stays the same, but you're getting more money each year with the benefit.
Trust me, we had a 3-screen spreadsheet going with formulas. The numbers are solid.
That's why I asked earlier on, if we could have something here that would show, you know, use some kind of example, $40,000 or $50,000 a year. When the person starts off at that, at right now, where will they be in 4 years from now? Where will they be as far as what they're paying out, what they're, you know, what they're paying for?
Had I had a specific request, I gladly would have done an example for you. I can do the math real quick for you if you like, trust me. It averages out to about $115 a year over 4 years, or $35,000.
Given the longevity bonuses in here of, once they do different changes in steps and grades and everything, those things aren't free.
So were you proposing we go for concessions?
I'm proposing that there is, I don't know if there's a place out there that's giving a lot of weight, giving a lot of raises right now. So I'm just saying,
Like I said, I don't
I know you
think,
spent a lot of time on this, but I mean, that's where I'm at the end of this.
and where I'm at is $10 a month for a $35,000 employee. Just be disrespectful. I mean, honestly, to go in for anything less. That's just my opinion, that I would feel slighted. I mean, I'm not gonna ask somebody to continue to go in, work their behind off, and say, oh, by the way, you're getting nothing for the next 4 years.
Further discussion? Resolution, poll individually. Mr. Otto.
Aye.
Mr. Carl.
Abstain.
Mr. Deshaies.
Aye.
Mr. LeBear.
Aye.
Resolution carries. Proposed resolution to approve addendum number 1 to agreement with CSCA. Actually, Ash, you want to have it? Mr. Fayette, you want to have this one, sir?
Yeah, what that pertains to is there is in one of the articles, it gives them until November 30th to determine what they want to do with their floating holidays, whether they want to use them or cash them in or whatever. That gives them until November 30th, but since November 30th is come and gone, we want to extend that to December 13th, which gives them the ability to make a decision on what they want to do. And that's, and it only occurs for the first year, this year.
So moved.
So this is just because of the timing of the...
Timing of the
cycle.
cycle. Correct, yeah.
Gotcha. Moved by Mr. Otto.
Second.
Second by Mr. LeBear. Discussion. Resolution, poll individually. Mr. Otto.
Aye.
Mr. Carvel.
Abstain.
Mr. Deshaies.
Aye.
Mr. LeBear. Resolution carries. Authorize removal of trees. Mr. Fayette.
Yes, with the sale of the former DPW site at 536 South Main Street, the village currently does not have a location in which to plant or to place leaves, grass clippings, branches that we collect during the course of the year from our constituents out here in the village of Massena. Therefore, I'm looking for another location. In these locations, we own property on South Main, or South Racket Road, in which I requested several vendors in the area the cost to cut down all the trees in these areas and also remove the stumps. That's what I'm looking to do. And I think we gotta do it sooner than later because in 3 weeks, we're gonna start having to pick up Christmas trees. And I have no place for them at this time. So that's what I'm looking to do is cut down trees on 2 sites. One being the site on South Racket, the other one is the trees that are encroaching into a ball field that we plan on constructing on Russell Road. There's probably about less than an acre of trees there that we wanna try and get rid of. So
So moved.
Second.
Have we mapped this out as far as what we're gonna do, how many we're gonna take out? I know there's a railroad that goes through there, we own on both sides of that.
Yes, we do own on both sides of that, and I have it mapped out, and that's what I gave the local merchants that do this type of work. One location indicates there's like 5.4 acres, and the other location on Russell Road was about less than an acre. So all total is about 6.4 acres of property that we need to clear.
So the property we're clearing, is it on, let me get my directions right here, so the south side of the track or the northern or river side of the
No,
track?
it'd be on the south side of the track.
How much acres do we have on the north side of the railroad tracks, between the river and the
All
tracks?
total, there was 17 acres, all total on that property,
Okay,
on both sides of the track. The total is 17 acres.
okay.
So, spoke to the superintendent last week about this, and with Christmas trees coming up, we were initially thinking their backyard would be big enough, but
I think caution should be exercised as well when you're dealing with railroad tracks, so they don't have a stop bar going. If you're trying to cross the railroad track, you just exercise caution when you're moving.
Is there a lot of trees you're talking about that's gotta be removed, Hops, to do this?
Yeah,
There's a lot of trees.
like that.
Would it be advantageous to us to talk to somebody that hauls, works in lumber?
I did that.
You did? Okay. thank
Oh,
you.
you mean as far as selling
Yeah,
the lumber to them?
get rid of it.
I don't think it'd be that advantageous. I will reach out to them, to a sawmill, if that's what you want me to do, sure, I will.
It wouldn't hurt, you know, because we don't have a figure of what's gonna cost, right?
Yeah, we do,
Well, you do have a figure?
yeah. Mhm.
I don't see it here.
I just got it yesterday.
Oh,
I
okay.
got the figure yesterday.
Well, if somebody could use it, would, on that thing, it's advantageous to us, right?
I understand the Christmas tree issue we have, which is imminent, but I'm a little bit concerned with the joint discussions that we're about to undertake with the town. My concern would be we take this step and then something alternative comes out of that. And we've made a decision that either we're locked into or we've done something that we didn't need to do in the first place. I don't know if it's prudent to wait or not, I just want to throw that out there. Or should we be considering other pieces of parcel too? I mean, we're limited as to options for property, but, and we had discussions on Thursday that will start with the town. I wonder if it's not prudent to.
Well, I think, is it, I get a motion on it. Anybody get a second?
I did.
Yeah, it's already been seconded.
At this time, I would be seeking a cost to clear and grub the site for use. I think now you're looking,
I have that. I have a
what is it?
written quote of $20,000 to do that. Anything above $20,000, I have to go out and publicly bid it. Under $20,000, I have to get three quotes.
and if it does turn out to where we move forward with this, I think that was part of the reason we stood firm on the sale price of the other areas, knowing we would be incurring expenses like this, so it's not shocking to hear. Should we not take action tonight, the next meeting isn't going to be too close, you won't be able to have anything done, correct?
No, this vendor indicated that he would have equipment on Wednesday and Thursday of this week. He'll be able to bring it in and clear out enough area for us for the Christmas trees that are coming in at the end of the month. And then he'll probably wait until drier weather to try and mitigate the rest of it. Because it's gonna get too sloppy in there. If you have too much activity, it'll be too muddy.
Would you be able to do a breakup of the project and just do the smaller area at a certain cost? And then should plans change?
I think that would be tough for him because the mobilization of his equipment, you know, he's got to pull it off of one project and take care of this. And so it's a timing thing with him.
How much space are we talking?
5.4 acres.
that we'd be clearing on South Brecka.
Yep.
There's 3 lots involved with that. How close to the property lines are we going to be?
How close to our property lines?
No, well, yes, the property lines would be.
Well,
How close are you going to encroach upon the neighbors?
no, there's gonna be a buffer between, the proposed project and their property line.
Or what's the buffer, 2 trees, or is it going to be 50 feet, or
No, I
100 feet,
haven't
or 1,000
indicated,
feet?
well, I have it indicated here, I didn't put a scale to it, but, on the side lot lines, to the adjacent sides are probably 10 feet, and then to the rear of the parcel, it looks like more like 20, 25 feet.
You think 25 feet is going to block that view from the neighbors?
I'm not saying I'm blocking anybody's view. What I'm saying is we need to clear a location for the stuff that we need to bring for this community. If I have another site to work with, then great, I'll work with it. But right now, I don't.
When the dump was there many years ago, it was between the railroad tracks and the river. That's where it was. Why aren't we using that same piece of land?
Again, I would think that once you start crossing over the railroad tracks, I think there's a lot of risk that you're exposing this village to by doing that, without any stop bars.
What's the risk? You look right, you look left, you drive across.
Terry?
There's driveways all along that railroad track, all along South Racket, all the way out to the racetrack. Different people drive across it. One of your employees lives on the river side of that railroad track.
Look, if that's what
They
this
drive over
board
us.
wants me to do, I'll do it.
The thing is, when you go in there, and you're gonna go in and do an area where it's a typical way the village does business. We go by guess and by golly, we just go in and start hammering, and we have no plan or anything into effect. And we go in there, we have little respect for anybody or anything but ourselves. That's where it's at, with this project right here. There's enough room there right now to put the Christmas trees in there. I'm not a rocket scientist, but I know how many Christmas trees are out there. And there's plenty enough room right now to put Christmas trees in that area where the chips are now. That thing hasn't been touched for the last 30 years that the chips have been put there, except to push the pile up once in a great while. It was supposed to have been put there to compost the chips. The chips are composted all right. The back end hasn't been touched in 20 years. But that's the way we do business. Now we're going to take thousands of bags of leaves down there, leave them in the bags until springtime, till they're all juiced and rotten. Then we're going to go with a loader and turn them over. That's what we're going to do with them, because that's what we've done for the last 7, 8 years.
7, 8 years, that's been like that, Francis,
No,
since
that's
I've
been
been
like
here.
that. No, that's
Since
been
I've
like
been,
that.
yeah.
Don't give me
That
that.
pile was started long before I got here, long before I
Full
got
of
here.
it. We opened the
It
bags
is.
up, and we used to empty them out
Oh,
in the thing. Then it got to the point where, once again, it was by guess and by golly, maybe it cost too much, maybe we can't do that anymore. It's too slow, we can't bring the bags down there, we can't open the bags up, so we dump them in the backyard.
How many Christmas trees are you talking
Well,
Probably
about? How many?
thousands.
Which town do we
I have no clue, I don't know what they do with it.
Why don't we wait till Thursday meeting, worst case scenario, do a special meeting afterwards if we have to proceed?
I don't know if this price is gonna be held that long, but I'll keep informed.
Withdrawing the motion?
And
I don't have a problem waiting until Thursday, and then we'll do it.
yeah. Figures that if we need it, price holds.
So you're withdrawing your second, and you're withdrawing your motion.
I'll withdraw my motion.
Not yet. We'll see what happens Thursday. So we'll see what happens Thursday and then go from there. Authorization to hire motor equipment operator, Mr. Fayette.
Yes, as everybody knows, there's one individual that from an individual that is on disability. He will be, his last day is February 3rd. I'm looking to replace that individual. His absence has caused the department a lot of hardship and some overtime expenses to the department and the village. This individual's been on workers' comp since the fall of 2015. I've had to shift personnel at the DPW to cover his absence. The one individual, again, doing that has limited our ability to accomplish a lot of tasks at the DPW. We had to allow overtime to accomplish some of these tasks. For instance, the last storm event we had on November 20th, the fill-in individual that is filling in this person's position right now was called in to plow on overtime, which he did that morning, but then he, at 6 o'clock, the refuse needed to be picked up, so he jumped on the refuse truck and worked his 10-hour days there for that refuse. You know, that in itself, that position in the last 13 months has cost us, the village, about 703 hours of overtime for that individual. Again, it looks like a viable and economical on the surface, but it has ripple effects. Not to mention that, you know, it might alter the reflex, increasing risk for this village. Again, what I am doing is requesting immediate action to replace the individual leaving in February. As everybody knows, the process is somewhat lengthy, so I'm looking to do this as soon as possible so that the individual coming on board will be here sometime in the beginning part of the new calendar year. And finally, I'd like to mention that this position is still in the budget. It's budgeted for, it's sitting there, and so I'd like to bring somebody on as soon as we can. This past week, we had another storm event. We did not have enough personnel to plow the roads. What we ended up doing, in addition to this individual that's on it somewhat permanent, there were 2 other guys that were off on refuse. Therefore, we stole 2 guys from the water, or from the street department, and put them in the refuse. And we didn't have enough to cover the plowing. That's the issue that we're running into, and we're gonna continue to run into it, but we have to keep our level up there. And also, we have a tremendous amount of, I believe, turnover coming up in the next 2 years, so we need to be able to train these individuals as soon as possible. Because there's a learning curve at the DPW, so that's where I am.
So I take these as 2 separate motions? An appointment right after.
Yeah, they're 2 separate motions.
H, authorization to hire motor equipment operator. So moved.
Second.
Mr. Apple, second by Mr. Levere. Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Motion carries. Appointment, Jesse Simpson, motor equipment operator. Mr. Bayot.
Yes, again, due to a departure of a second individual that we had just recently, the board had allowed me to go out and advertise and solicit for a new employee. 5 applications were sent down to DPW for review and also for interview. And we came up with the individual, Mr. Jesse Simpson, as the motor equipment operator. We would like to propose that. It's our recommendation to offer him the position.
So moved.
Second. Mr. Apple, second by Mr. Levere. Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Authorize CWSRF capital project change order number 1.
What's this, just an extra 90 days?
That's all it is. What's occurred, it's for our sewer trunk main replacement project going from Bailey Road to East Orvis Street. The state stepped in and said that they cannot use the products that are located on site at this time. Therefore, they have to go back to the drawing board and send in fabrication drawings and fabrication specifications to the state, get their approval, then manufacture those castings, and then they can use them. So it was out of their control, so they're looking for a 90-day extension, that's it, no cost change at all.
What about the boring or any of that?
No, that hasn't commenced.
No, but
yet.
we'll still be on schedule for that? when
Yeah,
it's
well,
needed?
I think we're gonna wait until spring.
Okay. It's kind of hard to bore in the winter.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Brewer, second by Mr. Alfeld. Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Voucher warrants.
I move that the voucher signed by trustee Carvel and myself be approved.
Second.
Second by Mr. Carvel. Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Monthly reports. You have the volunteer fire department and the code enforcement report.
Slow down, pass them.
Communications correspondence, the only one that I have is to let Haas know that Deputy Mayor LaVere did a full carburetor replacement recently, so if you need somebody in the mechanical department, he's your guy. He's your
And
guy.
it started afterwards.
Just doesn't blow any snow.
Trustees, any other communications or correspondence?
Yes. The topic of discussion is the trailer park on East Hatfield between East Hatfield and Tractor Supply. I just, might as well get some facts out now, because I don't think there's a lot of facts running around town right now. Let's just talk about it. If you guys know something, let me know. If I know something, I'll let you know. What's going on?
Currently, the proposal has been pulled. They're considering other options. We've had some discussion this week. I'll let Mr. McGowan jump in on this if you want as well.
Yes, basically, he's pulled it. They attended the last zoning board meeting. Mr. Wax, I'm pronouncing his name wrong, he wasn't here. It was a contingent of property owners that were here. They voiced their concerns. I voiced my concerns. The way they had it presented, he's in violation of a number of fire codes. The roads aren't big enough. There's dead ends. There's, he wants to put these trailers on top of each other. If you have, trailer fire that close, I think you're gonna have an inferno. Plus, he was supposed to have a full review of the county zoning, but since he's pulled it, they're not doing their review right now either, so. So as of right now, there's nothing going on,
Great. Did you get all that?
so.
Oh, yeah, good.
Hopefully,
Just a second to that, well, go ahead.
hopefully he comes back with something better.
I read there was a transfer of property for $100,000 that he purchased.
Yeah, I read that in the paper too. I think that was across the road. That's zoned a whole different, that's residential, I think it's A or B there, I forget. But he would need a zoning approval for that too, because you can only have trailer parks in the village. in
We don't have
resident-
that.
You do, the village does, in residential C, but there's so small sections of residential C in the village. I don't even know where you would, most of that is already populated, you know what I mean? I think he's just trying to use the property he has. Maybe he'll come up with a better plan. Commercial, which it's already zoned for, maybe he'll put a commercial property in there, which would make sense.
Great, thanks, Scott.
You're welcome, sir.
As you know, the process goes to the county. County makes a determination, sends it back local. The local zoning board can concur with the county or rule against it. If the applicant's not satisfied with the local zoning board's decision, they can appeal it to this body, which is why I've been relatively quiet, but I can just say that I see absolutely no value in that proposal for this community, so. Other correspondence from the trustees. Closing public comment period. Mr. Gray.
Thank you. I have two questions. One is about the proposal for the trailer park. About 20 years or more than that, I was on a planning committee to rewrite the planning, or the code, actually, a code committee. And at that time, trailers were removed from the code as being permissible. The ones that were in existence were grandfathered. I remember there was one up on North Main, there's some other different places. Now I understand that trailers are still not permitted, but trailer parks are, and I find that a bit of a conundrum in how that happens. Or if that is true, that you can't put a trailer on a lot, but you can put a trailer park.
That's true. I concur with everything you just said. And 2 weeks ago, when I heard about this project, I said they can't do it because, but the ordinance doesn't quite, it does permit that in the residential C, so.
My second question, there is a large property holder in the village that sued the town and the school district for a reduction in assessment. Even though the village is not named in that lawsuit, it certainly has an impact. As it erodes the tax base, you guys feel the hit for that. Are you aware that the law firm that you hired tonight led the charge on that assessment reduction, which really has a pretty negative impact on the taxpayer?
I was.
You knew that?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're giving upwards of possibly $50,000 to a firm that took money out of our pockets, out of your budget, ostensibly by reducing the tax base.
These are two separate issues. We're hiring a firm that our attorney feels best puts us in a position to continue the collective bargaining process we're under.
Okay, so if it doesn't matter that it might be a firm that doesn't have the best interest of the village, it's hard.
That's
But you're making a leap.
That's only representing differently. You're talking about a substantial firm here with offices all over the state.
Okay. All right. That's fine.
I don't concur with your position on that. Mr. Patterson?